Do you consider being deaf a disability?
Yes.
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 I would consider it, yes.
I do.
Yes.
Yeah, to some extent.
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Spencer Phillips, and my story is when I was 7 years old, I went with my siblings down the street to a park. There was a yellow slip and slide, the kind you spray the hose on, get it all wet, and just go sliding down it. And I thought I was going to be really cool and pretend that I was surfing. I ran as fast as I could and jumped on the slip and slide on my feet and was sliding down looking really cool. And then I lost my balance and fell backwards and hit my head on the ground really hard. It didn't feel very good, so I ended up going home from the party. And that night, I went to sleep, and then the next morning, when I woke up, I couldn't hear out of either one of my ears. And so overnight, I basically lost all my hearing.
My name is Ben Cahoon, and we were introduced to deaf culture really when we found out our new little baby, Emily, was deaf. They have a little screening that you go through in the hospital, and so very quickly you find out that she had a problem with her hearing. And it turns out Emily is profoundly deaf, and so that meant a lot of changes for us and our family.
I was born deaf, and I got a cochlear implant when I was 18 months old. I went to speech therapy for 5 years, and I don't know what to say.
I was born deaf. My mom thinks I didn't have enough growth in my nerves when I was growing inside her womb. And the nerves were not connected correctly. I was born without hearing. So I became deaf in my mother's womb. And it's not a surprise that I've been deaf my whole life because of that.
I don't consider being deaf a disability. I don't like being called disabled. I can do anything a hearing person does. The only thing I can't do is hear, but I have a cochlear implant so I can hear. So it's harder to hear, but I can do anything a hearing person can do.
I think if you're deaf and you only speak sign language, life is harder, right? Because you have to interact every day with hearing people. With the cochlear implant, though, Emily's life is pretty much what we would, as hearing people consider normal.
I say it is a disability because I can't hear the way you hear, or the way my kids wish I could hear. And so it's a challenge. So it's a disability in some ways, but it's one that I think you can overcome with just a little bit of extra effort.
Do you know anything about the deaf culture?
Not a lot, really.
I don't know anything about it.
Not much. I know that they do sign language.
Sign language.
Sign language?
Usually they're very polite and very kind because they know that we have to kind of go a little bit farther to communicate with them. So they're very willing to be kind and patient with us because they know that we have to do the same to them.
They have schools just for them and stuff.
I know everybody's super proud to be deaf. Like when my ASL teacher, she got pregnant and she had a little baby and the baby wasn't deaf and she was super bummed about it. So I think everybody's super proud to be deaf and they want other people to be part of their culture.
For hearing people themselves to think about deaf culture or deaf people and to think of what is their perspective. I think for a hearing person, their perspective of deaf culture is very different of the two different cultures. For a hearing person, it's more like a hearing person is very private. They don't share with everyone. They're not in other people's businesses. In the deaf culture, we're very friendly and very open and expressive. We like to ask a lot of questions like, who are you? And people are willing to ask, who are you? What's your name? But in the hearing world, they tend to not really ask people's names. They're a little bit more standoffish. Like a hearing person's perspective of the deaf community is they see that a deaf person has a lot of problems. They have a lot of needs. They need an interpreter, someone to write notes for them, that it's not the same as a hearing person. So hearing people look down on the deaf community, and the deaf community want to let the hearing people know we want to be the same. So we need your help to help us be the same. If deaf people show hearing people more clear of what is needed.
If I were to give advice to hearing people, I would say the number one thing is obviously to treat them how you would want to be treated, and you can almost treat them as any foreigner would that you couldn't communicate. If you went to France and you didn't know French, right? How would you treat that person? And if you can go out of your way at all and learn some basic signs, that means so much. It would be the same as you learning some French, right? A French person is going to be very appreciative of your efforts, and a deaf person is going to be the same way. Now, most deaf people have a little bit of hearing. They have to interact with hearing people their whole life. So if you're friendly and kind and go out of your way to accommodate them and to be a friend to them, it goes, I mean, you can develop lifelong friendships.
I think the biggest thing is just speaking clearly and loudly and just making sure that they can see your lips. Like, if they turn around, I'm like, whoa, wait. So it's really important that they just like stare at me, and I really like eye contact. And so if I can just look in their eyes and then I can just see their lips, and so just being really loud and clear is very helpful.
What people are saying in restaurants can be really challenging, really hard. Or when I go to the movie, if I don't get a captioning thing to stick in my little drink holder and have it come on out, which is awesome. But if I don't have that, I miss most of everything that's said in the movies.
And I want to educate people about the deaf community. I don't want hearing people to think that deaf people are dumb or stupid. I want to educate them that deaf people can do anything. Deaf people have a hard time finding jobs. And hearing people, don't understand that. A lot of times if they see that somebody who wrote down on their application that they're deaf, they put it aside. And so a lot of deaf people don't even put that down on their application. And when they show up for the interview, a hearing person is very surprised that they're there and realize, oh, a deaf person, they're excited about the job as much as anyone else, and they can do anything.
I think just whenever I can't understand, and I've asked what so many times that it's just awkward, I'm like, why can't I just understand them? And I kind of get frustrated and kind of mad about that.
That is a real challenge. I get tired of saying what. There are plenty of times where I just figure it's too much work to figure out what the person said, and I just ignore them. Does it really make a big difference in my life? Not so much. With my hearing aid, I hear pretty darn well. And, I have to ask people to speak up sometimes, but, that's not really a big challenge for them or for me. I just have to say what, or ask them to speak a little louder, or face me when they're talking, and then things work out okay.
And I feel like sometimes it can be awkward, so especially if the hearing person kind of gets annoyed. So I don't like it when hearing people kind of get annoyed that I'm like, can't understand them. So I just would appreciate if they'd be more patient and just try a little bit harder to be more clear and concise.